This looks like the very best team in football right now. All right, it's the Breer Report for October the 28th. Week 8 is now in the books. We're almost to the midpoint of the season. That gives us a lot to chew on for this Tuesday Breer Report. We're going to jump right in with the last thing we saw, which was the Kansas City Chiefs beating the Washington Commanders 28-7. To be fair, the Commanders did not have their starting quarterback, Jaden Daniels, out again. Marcus Mariota is the starting quarterback. That doesn't take away from what we're seeing from the Chiefs right now, though, which I think is a team that's evolving into the best team in football. They have looked really good defensively, really for the balance of the year with a few hiccups in there. And now we're starting to see what the offense can become as they get healthier on that side of the ball. Remember, they still don't have their rookie left tackle in there, Josh Simmons, who they expect back in the next couple of weeks from his personal leave. They have Rashee Rice back in the lineup. Travis Kelce's starting to look like himself. Hollywood Brown and Xavier Worthy are on the field together. And I think the result is what we saw on Monday night, which wasn't perfect, but this is a team that's now starting to play with a bigger margin for error. They did not play well in that first half. It was 7-7 at the half. Patrick Mahomes had turned the ball over a couple of times. And I think one of the what the best teams have, the teams that are most ready for the playoffs have, is their ability to put their foot in the ground and turn something around the way that the Chiefs turned that game around last night. And you just look at the deep well of weapons around Patrick Mahomes. I heard some people saying the Chiefs needed to do more to put more around him. And I was thinking early in the year, are you even paying attention to the guys who aren't in the lineup? Well, now, again, you have Rashee Rice, who they believe is a top 10 receiver in the league when he's right. They felt all along that he was their best skill position player. And they've gotten him back the last couple of weeks. We saw the difference. He had 9 catches last night. Was a huge weapon for Andy Reid and the coaching staff, Matt Nagy, the offensive coordinator. They have the 2 guys on the outside that are able to keep defenses honest. Now we're seeing Travis Kelce work in space a little bit more. You see some of the weapons that they had. You had to rely on more earlier in the year. Juju Smith-Schuster, Tyquan Thornton are settling into roles that are more commensurate with where they are in their careers. In the running game, you've got, again, towards the end of last year, you didn't have Isaiah Pacheco. You've got him in the lineup. They're going to be able to do some things with Rashard Smith. They don't have the tackle issue that they had a year ago where they had to move Joe Thuney out to left tackle. This looks like the very best team in football right now. And I know that sounds weird to say because they're 5-3. We're going to get a good litmus test on Sunday when they go to Buffalo and have to play the Bills, a Bills team that's playing better now, that got up off the mat after its bye and just beat the bejesus out of the Panthers on the road. I think this is going to be an interesting Sunday to find out about both teams. I expect it to be nip and tuck the way that most games between the Chiefs and Bills are. Maybe we'll learn a little bit more about both teams. But both teams, to me, are a great example of what the NFL is in this day and age and really has been going all the way back to the 2011 CBA, which is the real premier teams, the elite teams in the NFL, the teams that are established and have been winning for a while, generally use the first 3, 4, 5 weeks of the season as an extended preseason because there's just not enough time to get yourself to a championship level over the spring and summer with the way that the work rules work now. And so more often than you ever saw in the past over the last 15 years or so, you see teams that are at the top of the league figuring it out early in the year, making sure their guys are getting healthy early in the year, and then in midseason putting their foot in the gas, which it seems like that's right where the Chiefs are right now. Our second topic for today will be the Green Bay Packers and what they did to the Steelers on Sunday night, coming back from behind at the half, absolutely dominating the second half. A lot of the things that I said about the Chiefs are mirrored in the way the Packers played. Jordan Love was outstanding in the second half of that game. And this is another one to me where, we've been talking about the Packers all year. Can they elevate? Can they get to the next level? And I think their trade for Micah Parsons right before the season was a signal from the front office, from the coaching staff to that locker room. All right, now we're ready. And we've got this young group of players that we've been building around Jordan Love for the last 3 years. Now it's go time. And you're starting to see that with some of the young players in their team. I feel like the whole time, going all the way back to the spring and summer, the question was how many guys can elevate from good players to become great players. And they've got a deep well of talent there, a balanced well of talent across the roster. That receiver room, you see the competition for snaps now between Romeo Doubs and Christian Watson and Jaden Reed and Dontavian Wicks. At tight end, it looks like Tucker Kraft is becoming a legitimate star. Josh Jacobs is the bell cow that he was last year. And then defensively, I think Micah Parsons' presence has brought a different level out of play out of some other young guys like your Rashawn Gary, like your Edgerrin Cooper. On the back end, Xavier McKinney. This is a very well conceived team. This is a very well balanced team, and this is an ascending team right now. And I think you saw some character on Sunday night there too, on the road with that highly charged environment, an emotional game for Jordan Love and Aaron Rodgers being back in the same building again, and to be able to compartmentalize what happened in the first half and really get going in the second half. I think it was a good look at where the Green Bay Packers are right now. They've had a difficult schedule. They've had to fight through that. I think that's a big part of why I think more of the Packers and Chiefs than maybe their records show. Both those teams have had more difficult schedules. And I think both those teams are very firmly in the Super Bowl mix. Okay, speaking of the Super Bowl mix, our third topic for today, there are 3 teams in the AFC that are outperforming where a lot of people thought they'd be. Now, this is my producer, Kent, came up with this topic. He wanted to go, I think it was start, bench, cut. I'm not going to do that to anybody here because I think all 3 teams are good. And I would also say, like, the Broncos probably aren't outperforming where they thought they'd be. They thought they were a really good team coming into the year. A lot of people thought they were ready to make the leap, and they have made that leap. But I look at where the Broncos are right now, and of the 3 teams in the AFC that are those sort of surprise, leap, whatever you want to call it, teams, the Broncos, the Colts, the Patriots, which of the 3 is the most legitimate Super Bowl contender? And I'm going to give you the Denver Broncos. And I'm going to give you the Denver Broncos because I look at how battle-tested they are already and what they've gone through to get where they're at. And I look at the way that they were able to come back from behind in Philadelphia on that 10-day trip. Then on the other end of that trip, they wind up going and playing a New York Jets team they did not play very well against, but they're able to scratch out that win. And then they come back from way behind against the Giants. This is a team that's already got some pelts on the wall. They had to play the Chargers earlier in the year, and it was a devastating loss there. They lost in devastating fashion to the Colts, but both of their losses were very close. They could very easily be a 7-0 football team. And here's the thing. They're a well-rounded team that can win different kinds of fights. And I said this with the Chiefs, and I've said this with the Packers. Balance is really important when we're talking about what this is going to look like when we get to the playoffs. Of course, all these things are relative to injury. So the Patrick Surtain injury is worth keeping an eye on. But even if you look at that position, it's a good example of where they're at. They've got real depth at that position with young ascending players like Riley Moss, like Jedi Barron. There aren't real holes on the roster. They're balanced across the board. Do they have superstars all over the place? No. But they've got a quarterback who's capable of playing point guard and bringing out the most in some of their guys. Cortland Sutton, steady. Pat Bryant looks like he's going to be able to continue getting better over the course of the year. Dobbins and Harvey have brought in an element to the backfield that they didn't have last year. Engram's an interesting weapon. They're a team that I could see adding a piece. Like I mentioned the Chiefs, right? Like, and the Chiefs maybe could add a piece in the defensive backfield. I mentioned the Packers. The Packers, to me, could add a corner. The Broncos are a team that, if you look at their roster, there really isn't an obvious place where you say, yeah, that's where they got to add. My colleague Connor Orr, who I do the podcast with in the pod earlier in the week, he suggested maybe they go and get a tight end. That would make some sense to me if they get an inline tight end who could open things up for them to start to move Evan Ingram around a little bit more than even they are now. But this is a very well-balanced team. It's a talented team. And it's a team that's got a Super Bowl winning head coach that's playing in a very difficult environment in the AFC West that's going to make them battle-tested when we get to the playoffs. So those 3, and I like all 3 of them. I think the Colts, again, I think Daniel Jones and Lou Anarumo, those additions in the offseason really helped them unlock what was already a pretty talented roster. I think Mike Vrabel might be the coach of the year right now. Drake May's firmly in the MVP running with a roster that's still got its holes, but I think mirrors what the Commanders did a year ago. But to me, the Broncos, because just the totality of all of it, because the Super Bowl winning head coach, because the young quarterback who has a lot of experience from going through ups and downs in college, and just a roster that has a lot of answers on it, I would take the Broncos out of those 3. But I'm not playing your game on this, Kent. I'm not going to do start, bench, cut. I'm going to start the Denver Broncos with the other 2 ready to go. Appreciate you guys coming out. We will have another Breer Report on Wednesday. That'll be a mailbag edition and a third Breer Report for the week later in the week, as we always do to preview Week 9. You can, as always, leave your comments for me here on YouTube. I'll try to get in there and answer a couple questions. If you guys have some questions for me, you can also get to me on social media at Albert Breer on Twitter, at Albert R. Breer on Facebook, at Albert_Breer on Instagram. We will see you later in the week with the mailbag.